Today, we're going to be talking about beyond replacement, how SAP IBP enables the future of integrated business planning for your supply chain. Today's speakers is myself, Frank Polito. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Growth here at Exceed Consulting. I've been in the supply chain road now for over 20 years, working with clients in many capacities on their journey of supply chain transformations. We've got Zorde Cavalcanti. He's our head of digital supply chain planning here at Exceed. He's been working for over 17 years now, working with clients on their SAP journey for digital supply chain. And then our guest speaker here from SAP is Jeff Brown. He's one of the strategic vice presidents there, working for strategic initiatives and different supply chain projects globally. So we're really excited to have him here. And as you can see, he's got over 30 years experience. So he's our senior advisor for today. So Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today and presenting.
Thanks for inviting me, Frank.
Absolutely. So looking at our agenda for today, we're going to be kind of opening up with the urgent need for transformation to IBP, kind of the timeline and journey of APO to IBP, and kind of S/4HANA, the legacy systems and why it can't keep up with today's supply chain disruptions. Then we'll go into building the business case for transformation, common challenges and why the need for now versus for later. Look at the business value drivers, some success stories, and then from there we can talk about busting migration myths and the challenging opportunities of what you can embrace when making that journey, and then strategic roadmap to SAP IBP, understanding your migration options, big bang versus a phased approach, leveraging best practices, tools and accelerated migration. Then we're going to have an interactive Q&A. Talk about some key takeaways, some of our strategic offerings for readiness and assessments, and kind of take it from there. So let me make sure I got somebody else I got to admit. Give me a moment, and then we can get started. Okay. So just some homework, just some action items here. If you have any questions, put them into the chat box, and then when we get to the Q&A, we'll start to go into it. But I think we're going to be able to answer a lot of questions during today's webinar. So let me get to the next slide. Okay, the urgent need for transformation to IBP. So when you look at the product timeline and the life cycle and the journey from APO to IBP, APO was originally launched in 1998. They had a great journey from 1998 until IBP was obviously introduced and launched in 2012. And then as you can see, there's been various updates, various strategic plays that SAP has made on their journey to IBP. And I know that I was going to have Jeff maybe speak for a moment on this, on the journey and what he's personally seen.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. One of the things that's always been interesting to me, and I was around APO from some of the early days and also the early days of IBP, and always kind of a joke a bit that the great thing about APO was and is that it's tightly integrated to ERP. And one of the bad things about APO is it's tightly integrated to ERP. And really what I mean by that is Frank calls out in the middle there of the slide, what if scenario planning, especially in the turbulent times with all the supply chain disruptions we have today, being able to very quickly and kind of abstractly kind of look at key scenarios, looking at the impact of tariffs, other geopolitical issues, and simple things like port disruptions. How do we include those in our overall supply chain plan? I don't want to go back to ERP to make master data changes. I want to be able to quickly and simply kind of the outside of that ERP integration, evaluate business scenarios. And IBP is very well positioned to do that. And just to contrast, the great thing is IBP is also tightly coupled to ERP, but it's also in a loosely coupled way to allow you to build in the master data and things that you need to do those what-if scenarios and be very effective. And certainly, as is called out there, things with some of the differentiators about APO and IBP with things like ML and AI embedded scenarios and so forth. We'll speak about a little bit further in the presentation.
Sounds good. Thanks for sharing. So next, we're going to kind of look at the evolution of APO to IBP and S/4HANA and how there's been solution transitions. Demand planning and response. PBDS, GATP, all these different fancy acronyms. A portion has gone to S/4HANA, and then the portion of it has moved over to SAP Integrated Business Planning. So you can see which historical modules of APO have made these transitions as you make your journey to SAP's Business Suite. So this is just more of a visual, just to kind of see some of the solution transitions.
I think, Frank,
Yep.
to add on that, I think two things are important for this transition itself. So we can see that IBP has more functionalities that we had in APO. So IBP is actually more focused on the client needs. So what we need to do, full S&OP process, control tower, and etc. And also it receives a quarterly update. So different from APO that we usually have big updates on layer over years and years. Now we have updates every quarter. So all new functionalities to deal with tariffs, to deal with different things that we see happening in the supply chain, we receive quarterly on IBP versions.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So I'll move on to the next slide. What really encompasses supply chain planning with SAP IBP and S/4HANA, visually looking at sales and operational planning, inventory optimization, response and supply, demand-driven replenishment, production planning and detailed scheduling, PBDS, available to promise, ATP, and demand planning, right? So that's kind of the different modules that are encompassed within supply chain planning. Then you've got supply chain control tower and supply chain collaboration above that. And at the end of the day, it's all about customer-centric, resilient planning, synchronized planning, advanced planning and machine learning, and real-time visibility into your extended supply chain. Jeff, do you want to add anything on this slide?
I think one of the things that you just think about SAP as a platform is that combination of being able to do all different time horizons is really a differentiator. Taking it all the way from an S&OP even to a kind of a financial planning perspective, and being able to take it all the way down to hour, minute, and second to dispatch on the shop floor. That's a unique capability of the SAP platform with that tight integration to ERP. I think one of the things, I'm a reformed supply chain planner. I worked for Siemens many, many years ago. Frank, I'm not sure what's up. I can't get away from the German companies, but they've always been very good to me. But one of the things that always was a challenge is kind of bold statement. Planning is easy. Replanning is hard. And kind of this integrated nature of this platform and being able to take a real-time disruption, a PO didn't show up, a piece of equipment went down. That has potential implications, not just on that line, but it potentially means I need to change my source of supply for the next 30 days because it's going to be a major outage. So those kind of things, and being able to look at a platform, not just as planning, but planning and execution, is a real key point to continue to consider as you think about your evolution of supply chain.
Absolutely.
Hey, Frank, I think there are people waiting for approval.
Okay. I don't see any. Can you add them in?
I'll ask you, Roberta. Don't worry.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think it's a good transition of what are the limitations of SAP APO, right? Siloed modules, on-premise architecture, which lacks scalability and flexibility. Manual processes, a lot of manual processes, and lack of advanced analytics, right? With IBP, you'll be able to, eliminate these limitations. Cloud investment growth is trending, and being able to reduce supply chain risks is very important, right? So I think these are key limitations that are currently in APO that are compelling when you're building that business case to IBP. So why legacy systems can't keep up with today's supply chain disruptions, right? So the end of the road is coming up for SAP APO support and the different features. There's no new features being brought into APO. Supply chains are under pressure, right? Cloud investments are accelerating, and SAP IBP is a trusted standard, right? 75% of peers recommend it for modern integrated planning. And ultimately, APO just lacks that flexibility and intelligence for a modern supply chain. Zorde or Jeff, before we move on to the next section, any final thoughts or comments?
I think resiliency, right? Supply chains under pressure, and as we talked about a moment ago with what if scenario planning, you need agility and flexibility. And I know we'll speak a little bit later on some of the things that we even think about with extensibility. There's a whole concept of being able to take what's in the box and being able to leverage that larger ecosystem with things such as our business technology platform to even drive industry specific or scenario specific, or even as you think about commodity and so forth, different challenges that aren't traditional demand supply matching. And this is certainly a platform as those ever changing kind of business rules and economic conditions to really be able to provide that extensibility to manage those disruptions and so forth.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So building the business case for transformation to SAP IBP, right? Trying to get all the right players to the table and being able to say why now and why not later, right? And anytime you're looking at building a business case and looking at building a sustainable supply chain, you got to look at external forces or external challenges that you need to proactively prepare for, or current internal struggles, right? Supply chain leaders face unprecedented challenges every single day. And having the right solutions to be able to help you to adopt and adapt, right, to various situations is very important. And I know that me and Jeff were kind of talking about wanting to add this to today's presentation because this is something he sees every day with clients that are looking at building that business case for that journey. Jeff, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, it's the last few weeks, almost in every presentation, we've had some kind of flavor of this conversation. And brick and mortar decisions, you can't make those overnight. Certainly, there's always contingency planning for this, but how do I actually effectively manage today? And that's really where the interest is. And for years and years and years, we heard the term in supply chain visibility. And visibility in and of itself is absolutely imperative. But how do I use that visibility to take the right action, right? And that's really where you're bringing together external forces and internal forces and struggles and capabilities to really to be able to solve those problems. And look, supply chain planning is supply chain planning. There's a partner ecosystem out there with us that is able to bring in things such as macro and microeconomic disruptions, being able to look and manage risk. So those things are part of that mid to long term scenario analysis that we talked about a moment ago. That, yeah, sure, you got a great solver, but how do I aggregate data and take it from around the world to include that in part of my supply chain decision processes? Or is it something as simple as the weather, right? All those things are a key driver of those end-to-end challenges.
So I think this is a good time to transition to what I have been seeing and what the market's been seeing with SAP's journey to Business Suite, right? Any successful business case. Oh, I went ahead too fast. Okay, no, I'm on the right side. So orchestration requires a new era of enterprise management and suites of applications that SAP offers. And I want to let Jeff speak to the next couple of slides because on speaking on behalf of SAP, he can talk intimately to what he's seeing in the evolution with SAP and its clients to Business Suite. So go ahead, Jeff. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. And this is part of a construct that we announced a couple of months ago, and really talking about that orchestration. SAP has always been known for unparalleled applications, and one of the things kind of the end-to-end business process. As I mentioned, in my background, I'm a supply chain planner. Even though I've worked for SAP for 19 years, I'm not a technology guy. I want to know the business process and the business outcome. And that's incredibly important to me and to my customers when we meet with line of business leaders, really focused on what's that business outcome. Where that starts to become a little more difficult is, as much as we'd like to think the entire world runs on SAP, it doesn't. Right? There's always going to be internal and external data that's required and available and necessary to be able to effectively, navigate and manage the business. And one of the new things that SAP has announced is the ability of our business data cloud to really be able to provide a harmonized data layer, if you will, across SAP and non-SAP applications that then put us in a position to not only deliver AI as it relates specifically to SAP, but truly across an end-to-end business process. And I like to use just a very simple example about taking an application, data, and AI, and how that's kind of different. Early on, being able to kind of ask SAP, that's a very powerful capability as we think about adoption and use. Who wants to use a T code anymore, right? I want to ask for an answer. That's very powerful. You can get great insights. But contextualize, if you think about kind of this orchestration, maybe I want to create an exception message. Hey, SAP, tell me anytime I have a customer whose sales volume falls 20% over a 90-day period. That's cool. That's a great analytic. We think about working by exception and managing by exception. But where this idea of agentic AI will be able to take us is take that one step further and tell me why, or give me some insight into why those sales volumes have fallen off. Oh, we had 2 late deliveries, a recall, and an invoice price error. Those things, right, are in context of that end-to-end business process, is something that SAP will be able to uniquely provide as we move forward. So with that, Frank, maybe onto the next slide to kind of build a little bit more on what that really means is you really think about foundationally, SAP is powered by our business technology platform. It's the underpinning of both applications, integration, as well as our offering around data and analytics. Concentric with that, right, are the key line of business capabilities around finance, spend, supply chain, human capital, and customer experience. Marry that with industry-specific capabilities, like things in life science, something called batch release hub, right? It's a very key capability in ensuring that an actual product is ready to be shipped to customers with all of the quality checks and labeling and so forth. Then you're able to think about those from an agentic AI perspective is taking the insights about any one area of a business process and continuing to develop those into an overall picture using the Joule agents to get that orchestration from end to end. The example I gave a moment ago, don't just tell me where we're having sales volume challenges, tell me why. That's part of that end-to-end process of really being able to think about it not just from supply chain, but maybe it was a procurement problem, a finance challenge, and so forth. Heck, if you're down here in Georgia and it's hunting season, maybe there's an HR implication, somebody didn't show up for work, right? All those things really play into that end-to-end process. So maybe on to the next slide, Frank, to kind of pull this out. There's a lot of detail here, but really this describes those 3 key areas of unparalleled applications at the bottom, business data cloud, being able to pull together SAP and non-SAP data in such a way that we're able to not just have visibility to that data, but use it in context and further training of our AI models. And then finally is to be able to have that AI embedded in the business processes. So I even go back to, I think it was 2016. We had embedded machine learning scenarios directly in S4 as far back as that. The one that I'm most familiar with was predictive stock in transit, right? So it was very specific use case oriented. But as I take those and look at those specific capabilities, but then I put it in the context of an end-to-end business process, predictive stock in transit maybe means late delivery, maybe it means expedited freight, on and on and on. All those things is really about driving an organizational wide transformation with the entire SAP business suite, right? There's always going to be situations where you have to do plugins, and we recognize that. Maybe some very unique industry with the requirement that you have, or maybe there's the realities of transformation. You've got the company's grown through a series of acquisitions. There's different versions of ERP. How do we do that in such a way that we're able to orchestrate that effectively from both an AI and a business process perspective?
So do you want to wrap up with this slide?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is we want to think about this kind of this next generation thought process around SAP's approach to business suite is where do we focus then on supply chain management? How do we kind of peel back the layers of the onion there? At the heart of all of this is data and insight. Where's my truck? What's going to be late? How is demand going to change, and so forth? And all that is tightly supported by both embedded ML AI scenarios as well as the agentic AI across the entire platform. But we think about that in terms of kind of design to operate, everything from designing a product, planning, buying processes, the production processes, delivery from things such as warehouse and transportation, and then operate kind of from a service and maintenance perspective. And operate has a unique take, and it could be internally oriented or externally in terms of field service. But the focus of the rest of this conversation today is going to be more so directly talked about planning and how moving from APO to IBP provides a foundation for future success. So with that, Frank, I'll hand that back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just learned a lot just now, and kind of how you described it, how you simplified the last couple of slides. I've been to a lot of different presentations, Jeff, and I think you said it really, really nicely in a very digestible fashion, right? Sometimes we get lost in the details of these visuals, but I think you said it very nicely. So, why SAP Integrated Business Planning now? Like, why build the business case for now versus later, right? It's IBP's built for cloud, it's AI-powered forecasting, it's connected planning, and it's end-to-end visibility, right? A lot of companies that make the shift, they see a 20 to 30% increase in planner productivity, 5% improvement in service levels, and 4 to 5x faster time to value with intelligent automation, right? So these are key value drivers. We'll go into a couple more, but the one thing that I'm going to want Zorday to go into is where we've seen the success happen in real time, right? We've had a long-standing client with Braskem, and we've done amazing work with SAP and this client. And Zorday, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to the experience that we had with this client.
Okay. So Braskem is one of the largest petrochemical companies, right, in the world. Very large in the amount of plants and distribution centers and etc. And I think it's interesting to talk about this because it puts together the challenges that we said before with all of the benefits that we are saying together. And actually, exactly, they started this, I think, 7 years ago. So it was not even the version that we have today about IBP with AI and etc. But they saw that this could help and actually helped them a lot with their planning, right? So we can see here some of the challenges that we said about manual and difficult alignment of the processes, difficult with the gaps that APO provided to them. So some of the challenges that we said, It was exactly what they were facing. And what we did to them is we put all of their planning process together into a single solution. So they plan all of the factories and all of the SKUs from Brazil, Europe, and US in a single plan, in a single tool. And as Jeff said, they can aggregate all of this to see a single number for the whole company and disaggregate as they need for each specific plant, each specific area, to use for all of the execution that they have. So they start with the main planning over there and do all of the execution process together with SAP or with IBP, right? So IBP works as, let's say, an orchestrator of all of the planning processes. Some of them are done completely in IBP, and also we can call for them some specific external systems to make, for example, an additional optimization, and this returns to IBP to continue the process of synchronizing all of this functionalities that they have, right? And some big numbers that we saw with them, 2% of stock reduction. So you can imagine several countries with 2% of stock reduction. It's very important. About time in itself. So 5 days reduction in S&OP cycles. So they are now able to close the S&OP cycle within the month and with extra time to do more analysis, different scenarios, capture what they need and what they want to put together for next months and next strategic plans. So very important, everything. And we had some webinar with them, I think 2 years ago, and they said that they actually got back to their analysts about 20 days in a year for all of their process. So they have several analysts, all of them got 20 days for doing extra job or extra analysis, extra everything that they needed.
Jordi, that's a great story. And I think one of the things that sometimes, from a business context perspective, what does 5 days reduction in S&OP cycle mean, right? It's about resiliency. And again, their industry, petrochem, right, can potentially be pretty volatile, right? Because there's a lot of just macroeconomic conditions that they're dealing with, price of oil, right, and things such as that. But as you think about the amount of time that it takes, especially when you get into disruptions, if I can take this amount of time that it takes me to go through an S&OP cycle and reduce that, that means the things that you have visibility to eliminate disruption. I don't work overtime. I don't expedite. I don't have excess and obsolete risk. There's real value in the planning cycle time to real business KPIs out of that. That's one of the key things I think, Jordi, that I see from this Braskem story that may not be obvious, but is a huge business impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I said, so it is connected to ECC nowadays, but it's also connected to other systems that they have, legacy systems. So it's pretty flexible, everything that we can do. And for several customers that we're doing the same, as IBPs can connect to almost everything, or I would say to everything. So it's really ready to help all of the clients that we need.
Yeah, Zorita, this is a great story. And they're still an ongoing client, and we're doing work with them globally. So, okay, well, let's move on to the next section. I think this is a good transition to, challenges to opportunities, right? Busting migration myths. A lot of people kind of hold tight, they're comfortable, and they have some concerns that hopefully we can kind of address today. Migrations are too complex and too risky. The fear of losing historical data during the migration, or disruption of ongoing operations, right? So when you look at the migration being too risky, with the proper planning and experienced partners, Exceed Consulting, just going to throw in a plug, we can streamline, risks and mitigate it significantly. If it's using AI or bringing in the right trusted advisors or strategic consultants, you can build a solid business case with a solid roadmap with phased implementations, right? And data nowadays, you can protect it. There's so many strategies to put integrity around the data. And again, when you're looking at it not disrupting operations, you just put in the right roadmap, the right strategy, the right phased approach, and you'll be fine. And Jeff or Zorday, do either one of you kind of want to share any recent experiences where you may have had a client that had some concerns and you were able to address it?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm working with a customer in complex machinery, and one of the things that resonated with me as I was kind of going through this was the phase migration. Is they're an ECC customer looking to move to S4. They have highly configurable products, and one of the things that they had done is they had done some customization to APO demand planning to help them out with some disaggregation and kind of driving some downstream processes for order management, right? Um, do you do IBP demand today and rebuild that, or do you wait? Well, you probably wait, and from a phase migration, you tie that directly to your S4 transformation. But there were other things from inventory and things around supply planning that were very much still appropriate, and that was a very small carve out of their demand planning processes. There were still things in support of S&OP, new product introductions. So, hey, a hybrid environment probably makes sense for them for a period of time as they're going through their S4 transformation. So that was part of the conversations we were having with them.
No, thanks for sharing. I think that's great. So what I want to talk about now is, okay, you've made a decision to make the migration, right? So with Exceed, what we call it our intelligent migration from APO to IBP, and we've developed automated solutions to accelerate business growth when it comes to that digital transformation with SAP. And if it's from automatic extraction or master data structuring and planning areas, from APO to simplified transformation for import into IBP, it's one of the things that we strategize in. Automatic integrations of planning data, creating source system interfaces directly to IBP. We've leveraged Exceed's intelligent automation with many of our clients where we've seen a lot of success. And I want to kind of transition to the next slide around AI and how AI is a very important tool that a lot of companies are using in their migration, right? It brings speed and accuracy and scalability to the IBP journey. It minimizes risks and efforts and downtime throughout the direct system integration and advanced automation, right? So there's many tools out there that can accelerate your migration that enables you, again, agile and secure transitions, fewer operational disruptions, and automated integration for critical data. And, when we look at that package, right, we have various packages depending on the needs of the client, but, some of these migrations can be done easily within 11 weeks. Fully downloaded scenarios that are very possible. And then, like you were saying in the success story that Zorday was sharing, again, 5-day less in the S&OP cycle, having key benefits when it comes to revenue growth, planner productivity and service levels to be increased. And again, we talked about client challenges. We talked about the benefits and outcomes. This is just a nice slide to visually kind of look at all the information that we've kind of just went over in a couple of the past slides into one slide, right? And I think one thing that a lot of people think about is, key pitfalls, right? What are some things that we can try to avoid during migration? And that's one, inadequate planning. Lack of a clear roadmap can lead to delays and cost overruns. Underestimating data complexity, failing to address data quality and integration issues can compromise the new system's effectiveness. Neglecting change management, that's obviously very important. And overlooking human aspects can result in resistance and poor adoption. and then choosing the wrong implementation partner. Obviously, you want to be very thorough in the partners that you're working with, and selecting the right partner is obviously necessary because it could jeopardize the project's success. So before I move into the next section, just real quick, Zorde, do you want to maybe share any things in regards to what you've seen, pitfalls with any clients that maybe they didn't avoid that caused a big problem?
Oh, I wouldn't say when I add anything about that. What I would like to actually add is on the previous slide, as you said. So we have an intelligent migration to put IBP in place, and I think there's a lot of benefits that you can take with IBP running, right? So you can already start using AI. We have several different AIs available in IBP. So you have Joule, so you can do a planning asking for the system to do changes or simulate things for you. So I think you can unlock a lot of new functionalities that's urgent for the planning cycle itself. So I think it's a very and you can see that right, it's just 11 weeks. So after 11 weeks, you can actually start getting all of these benefits and understanding how the planning process can actually be part of a more strategic thing instead of just executing and put all of the plan together.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for sharing. So I think we're ready to go into our next section, which is the strategic roadmap to SAP IBP. What are some key things for you to consider as you're building your roadmap on your journey to IBP? And a lot of these slides are pretty high level, right? You need a comprehensive assessment. You need to build out a phased implementation approach, right? You got to make sure you've got stakeholder engagement. That's obviously super important. And then being prepared for training and support for proper adoption, right? These are railroad strategies to ensure smooth, low risk, low cost transitions. At the end of the day, you need to make these projects economical and fit the budget, or you need to find budget within the outcomes and the ROI that you plan to get from the initiatives. So this is really important, I think, for you to consider when you're building that roadmap that we do a lot with our clients. Jeff, do you want to add anything on just some of the different strategies, or does this pretty much sum it up?
I think this does a great job summing it up, Frank. I can't emphasize enough the importance of the assessment. You may ask a general question like, how good is your master data quality? Oh, it's good. It's solid. We got a great MGG process. Only to come back and find out they're using units of measure that make no sense from a planning perspective. Yeah. I've actually run into that a couple of times lately. And whether you're part of your S4 transformation or whether you're looking to go from APO to IBP, there's some fundamental things like that that's got to be a part of that assessment. The other is the stakeholder engagement. As you were talking about metrics and KPIs and kind of your case for change, I was working with a large company that has a large distributed network across the United States, and they were looking to improve their MRO, their spare parts planning process, using IBP. And as they got about a year into after their go live, senior leadership was asking, well, what's the outcome? We really haven't seen any massive change in inventory. Shouldn't our inventory have gone down? We actually had a nice conversation and brought in the head of maintenance and engineering. And that was the right conversation to be having, because he said his wrench time went up double digit improvements because he wasn't waiting on parts, right? So the outcome doesn't necessarily mean it's just about fixing the mix of inventory, but it's also about the business outcome that you're looking to drive. So they had the right stakeholders. They had the head of maintenance and engineering that was engaged to ensure that the project was aligned to the outcome. So I know these are some pretty high level bullets, but they're incredibly important when you kind of double click on those a couple of times.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. So we're making good timing. So we're going to kind of start to get close to wrapping up and going over a couple more details before we get to our Q&A. But when you look at that roadmap, there's two different approaches, right? There's a big bang approach where you got a large initiative where you want to roll out multiple modules and applications, or you can take more of the phased approach. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Big bang, it's fast time to value, clear cutoff between systems, easier to implement and standardize processes across the board. That may be a bit much to bite off all at once. So what we see more commonly are definitely the phased approaches, the gradual rollout of IBP functionality by module, regions, and business units, just lower risk, smoother change management, easier for adoption and training, and allows for continuous refinement along the way. Many companies, as you can see, really prefer that approach, but every company is different, and it depends on any internal business challenges they may be facing or external business challenges that they're facing that's driving this change, right? And what we've done as a gold partner to SAP is really implement T-shirt packages, right? We call them the Exceed Smart Packs. We're an industry expert across many of the key verticals where IBP lives today with their clients. We've got referenceable clients around the world, and we're one of the leading innovators for SAP's App House network, where we drive innovation and technology, where we've got applications on the App Store to support these supply chain planning initiatives. We got smart packs to really scope it in a way that is most economical. We work very closely with SAP during the sales cycle. We can demo functionality very efficiently. We've got these intelligent migrations that we talked about. We've got nearshore delivery centers, which allow us to be very cost effective. And as you can see, we're a thought leader in this space. We've been doing webinars for a decade now. We do private events globally. We're sponsoring all the major SAP events, and it's something we're very proud of. And, we were talking a little bit earlier about, accelerating your journey to SAP Business Suite. This is what's happening right now globally with SAP clients, right? They're making the shift to Business Suite. They're upgrading their ERP systems. They're upgrading their supply chain applications. And Exceed has really invested a lot in preparing smart packs to support clients on their journey to Business Suite. And it's all about building solutions that can interconnect these systems in a meaningful, economical way when you're rolling out these solutions either locally in one region of the world or globally in multiple regions, right? And being able to have a partner and SAP to help you be dynamic during these transformations is extremely important, right? And it's something I'm really proud of at Exceed is that we work very closely hand in hand with the clients, with SAP, when it comes to technology innovation and being able to help clients on their journey to SAP's Business Suite. So we've made it to the interactive Q&A, but I have some key takeaways that I want to share with those listening right now, and that is, why now and why not later when it comes to IBP, right? SAP APO is sunsetting. As you know, support is going away. There's no more innovation happening within APO. All that's happening in IBP, right? Modern cloud native platform is SaaS delivery and accessibility anywhere. That's the trend of the world. Real-time end-to-end supply chain visibility, giving you a unified planning platform within IBP. Real-time data and alerts, which is extremely important in today's world. Next-gen capabilities with AI, machine learning, automation, and what-if scenarios. Jeff was talking about that in today's presentation. And having that advanced forecasting algorithms and scenario planning is just super important. And then the seamless integration with, say, ECC, if you're still on ECC, or if you say you made the move to S4, IBP is very dynamic. And it can not only integrate with those systems, it can integrate with non-SAP ecosystems. So there's tight integration with homegrown solutions within SAP, but also external solutions, and with a full open integration framework that you saw earlier with the Business Suite. And then continuous innovation and agile updates, quarterly releases. Zorde was talking about that. Future proofing, cost avoidance and ROI gains, Obviously, avoiding last minute rush costs with legacy systems is something that really can hurt a business. And seeing early ROI rationalization with cloud applications like this is super important to consider. Better fit for modern supply chain needs. I mean, we live in a digital world, right? And with all the disruption that we're seeing around the road, having that agile, resilient platform that allows for sustainability and growth within your supply chain is it's a must-have. And this is, the act now, risks of waiting, right? High migration costs due to last-minute demand for expertise, running mission-critical systems with low innovation is something to consider. Missing business benefits of some of the applications that live in IBP today, like S&OP and inventory optimization, that you don't see in APO. And then I like this, the diagram about why migrate to SAP now, and kind of looking at the benefits of what doesn't exist in APO and what does exist in IBP. I think this is a really nice kind of compare and contrast diagram that I want to leave many of you with. And Exceed's exclusive offer that we work hand in hand with SAP is offering kind of that free migration assessment, right? Sitting down with stakeholders, looking at what that roadmap will look like, looking at your current state, what are your current challenges, what are the business outcomes and solutions you're seeking out of an investment, and it's something that we're very proud to offer to any of our clients or prospective clients. And we've made a big investment with SAP to offer that. And the last thing I'll leave you all with is if you're going to Sapphire, we're going to be there. We're a very proud sponsor. We're going to be sponsoring it. We'll be at booth 334. So if you're interested in meeting us, getting some face time to talk industry trends and best practices, we'd love to see you there. We'd love to meet with you. We're going to be collaborating with leaders around the road. And that's it. I think today was a great presentation. Jeff, thank you so much for coming. This was a joy to present with you today. And Zorde, thank you so much as well. And we'll leave it now for Q&A. So let me look here, see if we have some questions. I don't see any questions in chat, but if you would like me to unmute you to ask any questions for today's speakers, feel free, just put a note in the chat. Sometimes I like to think that no questions are good, because that means that our presentation was thorough and that we may have answered some of your questions during today's presentation. But we'll give a couple of minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you have any final things?
No, yeah, I just had a quick thought, Frank. The thing about the t-shirt sizing and the smart packs to me is very intriguing. We've seen different different perspectives and different partners doing that. I think it's front and center of what you guys are doing. So I kind of call that doing the blocking and tackling and doing it well. But you guys also have a lot of expertise of solving really hard problems, right? With extensibility and so forth. So maybe it was just more of a comment for me and an observation that you do the basic things really, really well, but you have some unique expertise and also looking at very complex problem and very quickly using the business technology platform to also solve those problems as well. So just a quick plug for you guys and some of the things that I'm seeing that you guys and where you've been successful. But I do see a question in the chat there, Frank.
Yeah. I mean, that may be best for you since you're at SAP.
Yeah.
Maybe help answer that.
Yeah. What is the current percentage of your current client base that has switched from APO to IBP? That's a very interesting question. If you think about kind of the long tail of history of APO, it's sometimes, quite frankly, hard for us to tell who's using APO and who's not using APO, right? Part of a large business suite transaction. But there are thousands and thousands of IBP customers that are actually live and using the application. And of those thousands and thousands, probably 65% of them were on APO. So we can extrapolate and get the idea that there's been quite a large number of APO customers that have migrated, but not all, right? There's still an opportunity for transformation for our customers. To really think about that, some of them are waiting for an S4 transformation. There's good reasons to not do that. If there's certain business outcomes that you're really looking to drive, maybe think about that in advance of your S4 transformation. So probably not 65%. I think is about the number of IBP customers that came off of APO.
So that leaves the remaining like third that still have not made the move. Ballpark, right?
Ballpark.
So we got another question. What makes IBP a better solution than others? Blue Yonder, Kinaxis, and some of these other solutions. Would you like to speak to that as well?
Yeah, happy to. I think the key thing we kind of talked about early on in the presentation is planning is easy and replanning is hard. And the idea that in the SAP world, this notion of full end-to-end synchronized planning is only something SAP can offer, right? They may do a good job with planning, but they may struggle with replanning. How long does it take to batch upload information from current transactions and inventory levels and things such as that? So, that's the number one thing. And I think about that not in the word integration. Integration is an IT term that I don't care about. Interoperability is what I care about as a business person, right? And that notion of replanning and taking real information, real status, real visibility to inform my plan. If I can solve problems and taking it from taking this amount of time to this amount of time, that means I do better analysis and I drive better outcomes. I'm not expediting something that doesn't need expediting. I'm not working overtime when I don't need to work overtime, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, and just to add, we when we showcase the slides about the journey to SAP's Business Suite, having a fully integrated architecture of SAP suite of applications, I think is another big differentiator. If you're already using SAP, if it's ECC, or you've already made the move to S/4HANA, staying within the Business Suite ecosystem with supply chain management, I think is a huge value driver than trying to pull all these disparate systems and applications. It can get very convoluted trying to bring in all these various different systems. And I think that, it's something obviously an SAP shop should consider is that you have everything in one single architecture with SAP's Business Suite. So, go
what
ahead.
I would like right over there, Frank. So as Jeff said, and I think it's important, SAP can actually cover everything from design to operate. So they have solutions to cover all of the process of it. And I think as he mentioned, and most important, and I think the big difference is that when you see the process itself that is designed on the RDS or on the methodology of SAP, you have actually the process already ready to be used when you see using IBP with S4, communicating with the detailed plan, that the detailed scheduling. So all of this is a process plan thought to be done as a single process. So you start on the planning, you have all of the communication with the different processes, and it doesn't matter to the business itself if it's running on IBP or in S4. And when you do this with a different solution, of course, you need to think and create all of this connection of the process itself. Right?
Okay. So I know I want to get every question answered, and I love these questions coming in. So we'll try to get an answer. So we've got a question. I've heard of companies using IBP only for demand planning and do SNP using an external application. Have you encountered this situation with any customers? And how do you manage or convince them to move entirely to IBP? Jeff, you want to take a swing at that first?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a company not too far from me right now that was in that situation. And actually, part of where they started is around that 2014-15 timeframe, is when there was introduction of IBP. They had APO, they had some APO applications implemented, and they're still in a hybrid environment. And part of that was just the timing of the implementation. The operational planning worked well. Now, there were some things that they did. They chose to implement S&OP. So some of the higher level kind of mid to long term planning, they were using IBP because APO really couldn't do that. And they were in a situation where they were thinking about the operational planning really being aligned to their S4 transformation. Would there be benefit for them moving in advance? Absolutely, Frank, as you called out in your content. But just for lots of reasons, technical reasons, staffing, and disruption, they've chosen to wait.
And then a next question we have you seen bigger percentage of customers wait for S4 to move to IBP, or more first moving to IBP before upgrading their ERP?
I don't have a specific percentage, but my directional is we had many more customers moving to IBP in advance of S4 than just simply waiting. Number one is they're taking advantage of capabilities that don't exist in the previous business suite, like Zorde called out very well with things like S&OP. The demand planning capabilities are vastly superior, and things like inventory optimization. You just don't have access to those, and those can be of tremendous value depending on where you are and where you're headed.
Absolutely. So got that. Yeah, we will be sharing slides. We will be sharing today's recording. We're also going to cut it up into bite-sized pieces per section. And then how can we go about in getting a demo, which obviously, Marianne, we can definitely work with you to get demos of any of the different applications that fall within IBP, no problem. And final opportunity, any final questions that we can answer? Jeff, really appreciate, again, you helping answer some of these questions. Zorde, did you have any final feedback on some of these questions? We did just get another one. Okay. How does moving from APO to IBP in advance of S4 implementation help prepare for the S4 transformation? So Jeff, I want to let you answer this one too.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned just a couple of simple examples we've run into, the question about master data quality. And it's interesting how you can expose really challenges that you've created in your ERP implementation early, right? Something just as simple as unit of measure. It's not pallet, it's each, and things such as that. How do we prepare? And ultimately, I think a lot of the legacy ECC implementations stopped at finance, and they really kind of had to retrofit manufacturing and supply chain. And being able to identify those early gives you a leg up in understanding, I really want to take advantage of the Indian processes in S4, not just finance. And they've created problems in the past. You peanut butter spread cost allocations. You have external systems for inventory management. How can I really provide that kind of the global visibility that COOs, supply chain officers really need by getting the data right? And that's a very simple example of one of those advantages.
And I want to add to that by saying that when you're building your business case, every company is different. Every company has different challenges, right? And every company has different solutions that they're seeking with an investment into an upgrade. So I think that it's a very critical step during your business case development, doing any assessments, building any roadmaps, to say what is important now. And if that's something that relates to your ERP system versus your planning system, then you may want to consider an S4 upgrade first, or vice versa. If you got a lot of disruption in planning and in your supply chain, that's costing your business a lot of money, then you may want to consider IBP first. So I think every business is very unique, and you have to be very smart about, these transformations. So I would just add to that every company's different, and when you're doing your initial assessments or roadmaps, that's a critical step in helping you understand, do I do S4 first versus say IBP on your journey to SAP's Business Suite. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time today for attending. For all of our attendees, thank you so much for taking time out of your calendars to enjoy this session. Jeff, again, thank you so much for the time that you've spent with us. It was so educational for me personally, just hearing some of your insights. And Zorde, same thing. Thank you so much for joining me and co-presenting. And I hope everyone has a wonderful upcoming weekend and a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank. My pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.